By the end of this video, not only are you going to know how to use the Pocket 4, but you're going to know how to get the very best footage with this camera. So let's pop off the gimbal clamp right here, and let's take a look at some features on this camera. First of all, right here, we have the rotatable touchscreen. So you rotate it to the right, and the camera is going to power on. And of course, up here at the top is the camera, right here. And right here is the pan motor on the gimbal head. So this pan motor is how you rotate it. Basically, any way you're going to move the camera is going to happen right here or right here. Next, let's look at this button down here. This button with the C is the custom button. We're going to talk about how to program that a little bit later. And over here, the plus sign is the zoom button. So if you press it once, you're going to get a 2x zoom right there, which is very nice. It is that nice lossless zoom. And then you push it again, it's going to go back to the 20mm. And then if you tap it twice, you're going to get the 4x zoom. Now it is important to note that the 4x zoom is not lossless. There is some digital zoom there, but that is going to give you a really tight 80mm perspective. And this right down here, this is the speaker. So if you want to play back any of your clips, this little bar right here is where the sound comes out. And then this little light right here that's currently green, this is the status LED. So if it is solid green, that means the camera is ready to use. If it's temporarily off and stays green, that means you're taking a photo. If it blinks red slowly, this means you're recording a video, like this right here. If it blinks red 3 times rapidly, this means the camera is powering off or about to power off because of a low battery. And finally, if it blinks red and green alternately, this is when you're updating firmware. I'm going to show you what that firmware update process looks like in a moment. And this joystick right here is called the 5D joystick. This is how you can adjust your camera. You can go up, you can pan down, you can go left, you can go right, you can double tap it to recenter it, you can triple tap it to have the camera turn and face you, then you can triple tap it again to have it go back. And down here on this side right here is the micro SD slot with the cover. So if you want to put a micro SD card in, you just have to pop this open and pop the card in. Now, the nice thing about the Pocket 4 is this does come with internal storage built into it. And that is especially nice right now at a time when storage prices are soaring. Storage is very expensive right now, including micro SD cards. So I'm really glad that DJI did this on this camera. And then of course, over here on the back of the camera, this is the USB-C port right here. And then on the very bottom is that 1/4 inch 20. So if you want to put this on a tripod, you've got that thread right there to mount it. And then I don't want to forget about this button right here. This of course is the record button. So you hit that and it's going to start recording. Hit it again and it's going to stop recording. And for the microphones on here, let me show you where those are. So there's one mic up here right above where it says Pocket 4, right above the P. And then there's also a microphone right here on the back. And then if we go around to this side, there's also a microphone right here. So there are 3 mics on there, and these mics are excellent at picking up sound from many different directions. So when you first power on your camera, you are going to be prompted to install the DJI Mimo app and to do the activation process. Now, it will also allow you to skip the activation process up to 5 times before you have to do that, but then it will force you to activate. I recommend just doing it from the start and getting it over with. So once you've connected it to the DJI Mimo app, it is going to prompt you for a firmware update, assuming that yours comes without the latest update. Mine did not have the latest update. I did have to update it. It is important to note the firmware update the first time. It's a big one, and it is going to take a couple minutes, so just be patient while it updates. And then once it's done, you're gonna have all the latest features and bug fixes, and you're gonna be good to go. So next, I'm going to power this on, and I'm going to show you how to use the touchscreen. If you single tap in the camera view, this is how you can do focus and metering. And basically, wherever you have that, it's going to properly expose and focus on that square. So let's say down here, I want it to focus on the table in that square. It's also going to expose properly for that, and then you can see how it adjusts up here. And let's say we want to expose for the sky. You're going to notice it gets darker in the rest of the frame because the sky would be overblown. So if you prefer to do that, you're going to have that option. If you double tap on the screen, that's going to be how you select a subject for active tracking. And then if you want to remove that subject for active tracking, all you have to do is tap once inside that green square, and it's going to remove that. Now up here in the upper left, this shows the storage capacity and the remaining record time, depending on which mode you are in. So right now I'm in the video mode, and with that built-in storage, I have 2 hours and 50 minutes of record time at 4K 24. And then over here, this symbol right here in the middle, this is the smart gimbal mode. So if you click on this, this is where you're gonna have several different options. So you've got some different modes you can set up. You can do the spotlight follow mode, and this is going to explain what that does here. And you can add subjects, like you can program subjects, which is very cool. So if we turn this around, and I can register myself as a subject right here. So I'm gonna hit the check mark, and I have registered myself as a subject. So this is a really cool feature on the Pocket 4, because then I can have myself all there ready as the subject that I want it to follow. And then all you have to do is click start. And then if you go to this mode down here, this is dynamic framing, and it tells you what you can do to use this mode here. And then down here for the spin shot, this is going to automatically rotate the camera either 90 degrees or 180 degrees. So if we click this and then tap the icon, it's going to do the spin shot just like that. So if you want to get that automatically and not have to do it manually, that's going to be how you do that. And then the next button down here in the left is how you set the shooting mode. So currently we're in video. You can toggle between your custom setting, which I have one there. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. You also have panorama mode, photo mode, video mode, low light mode, slow motion, hyperlapse, and time lapse. Up here is the battery level in the upper right. And if you do happen to have the additional add-on battery, it's going to show you that level there as well in the secondary battery symbol. And then over here where the two arrows are and it says 1x, if you tap on that, that's going to change it to the joystick controls zoom. So when you do that, you're going to be able to zoom with the joystick. And then if you tap it again, it's going to be where the joystick controls the tilt. And of course, if you want to rotate the gimbal, you can click this down here and it's going to rotate it just like that. But I find myself generally just rotating it with the triple click here and then triple click back. And then down here at the bottom, these are the shooting specifications. So you can swipe this up to change all of those, which I'm going to go through in all of the best settings. And of course, if you swipe left, this is going to be where you can change all of the advanced parameters in any mode that you're in. We're going to talk about that in a moment as well. And then once you've recorded some clips to the camera, you can swipe right and you're going to be able to play back those clips. And then if you want to see all the clips, you just click up there and you're going to be able to see all of them and toggle through them. And then if you swipe down, this is what's called the control center. And these are some of those general settings that I'm going to go through with you in a moment, because there are some key settings here that you're going to want to change. So first of all, this symbol up here is the custom mode setting. And when you click on that, what you can do is you can save custom settings to this mode. But what you want to make sure of is you want to make sure that you have all those settings keyed in first in the current mode that you're in. And then you're going to click this right here. And then you're going to look at the settings and you're going to confirm those are the ones that you want to save. Number 2 right here is how you connect to your wireless mic. And I have the DJI Mic 3 that I use with this, and it works really well. But basically, once you pair it, you're going to have a whole bunch of settings here that you can adjust. These include the low cut setting, which I usually keep off. The 32-bit float recording, I keep that on. The audio to video sync, if you want it to record a secondary file directly to your transmitter, you're going to select that and it's going to record that 32-bit float to this that you can then sync later on with your video file. So if you want the very best quality this mic can produce, you'll want to do that. LED, I keep that on as well. Vibration as well. Auto power off, yes. And then if you need to format the transmitters down here, that is your option right there. Setting number 3 is your fill light adjustment. So if you do have the fill light, this is where you can change that setting. I do not have the fill light, so that is not going to be applicable to us. Setting number 4 here is the gesture controls. So if you want to use gestures with this to start and stop recording, you can do that. And if we click on this cog down here, This is going to have quite a few settings underneath this. So for these, I keep most of these at the default. So I'm gonna keep most of these as they were, but a few things to know: if you're gonna use this in wearable mode, that's how you're gonna set it right here. And if you want to press and hold the shutter record button to cancel recording, you can do that. That one by default is on, but I personally turn it off because I've had some moments on cameras where I've done that and I've actually lost footage accidentally, where I didn't actually mean to cancel the recording. And then one of the settings I recommend doing the first time you're using the camera is do gimbal calibration. In addition, if this camera has gotten hit, like if you dropped it or bumped it into something, I recommend doing it again. All you have to do is just make sure it's level when you do it. You hit confirm, and it's going to do a countdown, then it's gonna spin around a little bit, and you just don't wanna touch the device while it's doing that. So you just wanna give it a few seconds to finish doing what it needs to. You're gonna see it rotate like that, and then it's gonna let you know when it's done. And then all you have to do is hit confirm. And then really important settings here for the joystick speed. So if you want to get really nice footage, you're going to want to have this move slowly. So what I do is I put the zoom speed and the gimbal speed both down to 1. And what that does is that gives you a nice, smooth movement here. So if we're zooming in, that is a slow zoom right there. And then when we zoom back out, it's nice and slow and gradual. And then as far as the movements, when it's in level 1, it's nice and slow there. Same thing with up and down. That's just going to help make your videos much more professional looking, versus if it's moving around really fast, that's going to be jarring to your audience. And in most cases, that's not going to look good unless that fits the theme of your video. So you can play around with those settings. I'm just showing you what I recommend for that. And then a really, really important setting, bitrate. By default, this is going to be standard. You want to set that to high. You really want to get the very best footage out of here, and it does make a difference. Sure, it is going to take up more space on your storage or your micro SD card, but you want to get the very best footage because this camera can produce some incredible footage. And then down here, there's time code, there's naming management, album password, a whole bunch of other settings. All of these I did keep at their defaults. I did not change any further settings down here. And then your storage, if you ever need to view it or if you need to format. If you want to format it, you click here and then you have to drag it. But do keep in mind that if you format it, it is going to delete anything on there. So make sure you're only formatting it if you actually want to delete everything on there. This setting right here is where you can adjust the landscape or portrait mode for the camera. If you do the auto rotate, what it's going to do is it's going to rotate it automatically. So if you go vertical here, it is going to switch it to the 3K resolution. So do note that when you're filming vertically, it is only 3K, it is not 4K. 3K is still great, but just keep that in mind that you're not going to get the full 4K resolution if you use it dedicated vertical. And the next mode here is for the rotation speed. So this one I like to have slow as well, because as it mentions here, it is going to result in smoother videos. And who doesn't want a smoother video? Unless having your video rough and shaky is part of what you're going for, but otherwise, why would you not want it to be as smooth as it can be? And next here is the gimbal mode. So you have a couple different options here. By default, I do keep this in the follow mode. As it mentions here, that's suitable for most scenarios, including vlogs or selfie videos. But you do have the tilt locked mode. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep the horizon line level. So that can be great if you want any push-ins, any pull-outs, any pans, anything like that. That can be really nice for those. So I recommend using it in those scenarios. And then if you want FPV, you can do that, but the camera is going to rotate freely and it's going to follow your device movement. So that's going to give you those creative shots, but there's definitely going to be a lot more movement with the camera here. Finally, if you do that final FPV mode, what it's going to do is it's going to keep the same direction with the touchscreen, which is good for quickly capturing subjects directly facing the touchscreen. And then we've already done this, but this is where you can register subjects. So I've already registered myself on here, but if you have anybody else that you're filming commonly, you can do that there as well. And then the custom button, I promised we would get to this. So you're gonna be able to set that right here. So single press by default is going to be joystick controls zoom and tilt. So you can switch between those. but you've got a bunch of other options on here. So I recommend checking those out, seeing what works best for you. And then you also can set what a double press and a triple press does with that button. So you do have quite a few options for customizing the customize button. So the next setting here, the screen rotate and capture, what this does if you turn it on is what it's going to do is your camera is going to automatically start recording as soon as you rotate this to turn it on. If you have the camera orientation set to auto rotation or landscape, when you rotate the screen, it's going to automatically stop recording and turn off. So basically that eliminates the need to use this button if you just want to turn it on and off every time you want to record. But if the shooting orientation is set to portrait, the shooting will continue even if you rotate it this way. So keep that in mind. Right here, you can adjust the screen brightness. I like to keep it with the default. And down here, this is where you can enable or disable the FT selfie mode. So I usually keep the selfie mode off, but when the gimbal's in selfie orientation, the camera is going to automatically track the subject occupying the largest area of the frame. Tracking will stop when the gimbal orientation is reversed. And selfie flip right here. So when you enable this, the footage captured in selfie mode is automatically mirrored to match the preview. And then right here is the volume. So if you don't want the loudest volume on here, if you want to be a little more discreet, you can do medium, low, or you can mute it entirely if you don't want any of the beeps. I like to hear the beeps, so I usually keep this on medium. Medium is quite a bit quieter than high, but I find it's just the right volume in most filming situations. And then final setting here that I change is the grid lines right here. I like to turn the grid on. So what that does here is you get it's very subtle, you may not even be able to see it, but it is the thirds there. I like to be able to do that because I like to try to have my subject's eyes line up with that top third right here. I have my preferences there when framing subjects, and also if a subject is moving this way, try to keep them in this third of the frame so we see the 2/3 in front of them. And then if they're here moving this way, I like to keep them in the left third of the frame. Just a few free tips there for good framing for your subjects. So let's get the best settings keyed in here. Now, my philosophy with these settings is I'm going to give you the best settings to get footage straight out of the Pocket 4. So this is going to be for those of you who want to do minimal or very little editing. You just want to put your clips together and publish them. For those of you that want to do more advanced manual settings, which involve ND filters and a couple other keys, I'm going to show you all of that in a separate video. But for this video, I'm going to show you how to get the best results straight out of the camera, because there are some settings you'll want to change to get those. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure we're in the video mode. Video mode is what most of you are going to use most often with this camera. And you're going to swipe up. Now, I always recommend using 4K. But as far as what frame rate you use, that is up to you. If you want that more cinematic looking footage, do 4K 24. That 24 frames per second is what most movies are filmed in, so it's going to look more like a movie. If you want a TV show look, do the 4K 30. If you want more of an FPV look, go with that 4K 60. In addition, if you want to slow footage down later on, but not use the slow motion mode, which I'm going to show you in a moment, you can do 4K 60. And on a 30 frames per second timeline, you're going to be able to get 50% of the original speed. And a 24 frames per second timeline, it's going to be 40%. My default is 4K 24. So once you've set that, you want to swipe in from the right. And the first thing you want to make sure of is you want to make sure Pro is selected. If it's not selected, you're not going to have a lot of options there. So you want to select Pro right here. For the exposure, you can keep this at auto. And as long as you're not filming in low light, these settings right here are going to be good general purpose settings for pretty much any daytime filming. For the white balance though, I do recommend setting this to a manual value. So it's going to start off at auto, but I recommend going up here to manual. And if you're going to be filming during the daytime, you're going to want to adjust this to 5600K. And then this tint right here, you want to put that to 0. If you are filming at sunrise or sunset though, which I'm actually getting close to right now, you'll want to do the 6500K for your white balance and the tint at 0. You want to be very careful to change the tint, because if you don't, you could end up with stuff looking really pink or really green, and it's not going to look good. So keep that tint at 0 once you've adjusted this. And then if you are happening to film at nighttime, like in a city, something like that, you want to put this all the way down to 3800K. It's gonna give you those excellent nighttime colors. But if you want to let the camera do that, just click auto white balance and it's going to adjust accordingly. Glamour effects, I recommend keeping that off unless that's what you're into and want that. For the color mode, if you want the footage straight out of camera where you don't have to do any color editing, you can do the normal 10-bit mode. 10-bit is great. And then one thing you have on here is you do have film tones. So you can toggle through these and see which ones you might like. There's a whole bunch of them. I like the movie one and I like the retro one, but there are a bunch you can toggle through, or you can just keep this set to none. For the focus mode, you'll want to keep this set to continuous. And if you do continuous, if you want to do project showcase mode, one thing you can do in that mode is if you're presenting to the camera and you're holding up something, what it's gonna do is it's going to focus on that right away, and then it's gonna jump back to your background. But you're not gonna have to worry about the focus jumping around if you were in the camera. So like if your eyes are here, but then you hold up a product to the side of your face, instead of staying focused on you, it's going to focus on whatever you have closest to the camera. So keep that in mind. It's really good for that. You're not gonna have your focus wrong. It's going to get it right every time. But what I typically do is I keep this set to continuous and default. For the image adjustment, what you want to do is if you were filming during the daytime, I recommend setting this texture down to -2, and I recommend setting the noise reduction to -2 as well. These two settings right here are some of the biggest, most important settings to getting really good looking footage out of this camera. And the reason for that is texture. If you have that up too high, even at 0, it makes that footage have an over sharpened look and it doesn't look good. So I like to have that footage with the least amount of texture as possible. And then noise reduction during the day, you really don't need that because this camera is going to operate with lower ISOs anyway. But if you are filming in low light in this mode, I recommend putting noise reduction to 0. It's going to be a good balance and it's going to have good looking footage. This camera already has large pixels, which is good. Basically, large pixels are going to give you better looking footage in low light. But -2 and -2 are the way to go. And then focus breathing compensation, you do want to have that on. What that's gonna do is when your focus changes, the focus isn't going to jump. It's not going to jump on you back and forth. It's going to be nice and smooth, and it's going to look good. And then low light image enhancement, you can have that off for auto. If you're not filming in low light, I recommend keeping it off. But if you are filming in low light, it is going to override some of these settings to help make it look better. So if you're someplace where you're going in and out of buildings on a bright sunny day, something like that, you may want to keep that set to auto. And to get to the audio settings, we're gonna click the mic symbol right here. And I recommend setting the channel to mono. And wind noise reduction, unless it's really windy, I recommend keeping that off. If you have it on when it's not really windy, it's going to have an effect on your audio. Sometimes it doesn't sound as good. Directional audio, I recommend keeping that set to all, unless you have a reason to only have it at the front or the rear. And then vocal boost, if you're gonna be doing a lot of talking to this, I recommend turning that on. It's gonna really enhance your vocals and it's gonna sound really good while you're talking to the camera. And then for the audio zoom, this is a cool feature. It's going to enhance that sound based on where the lens is pointing. So I recommend playing around with that. I usually just keep that set to off, but that's mainly because I use the wireless mic. And once you've keyed in those modes, you're ready to go in the video mode. But I did want to show you, I'm going to go here and do a 4K 60, but I'm gonna keep all the other settings the same, and we're gonna go up here and save a preset. So I'm gonna save this to my custom 2, and it's going to confirm my settings right there, and I'm gonna click confirm. So now if we go over here, we're gonna have custom 1, which is 24 frames per second, and then we're gonna have custom 2 right there, which is the 4K 60. So next, let's go to the panorama photo mode. This mode is a pretty quick one to show you, but if you wanna do a panorama photo, which is very cool, it's a mega photo you can take with this, you just wanna swipe up from the bottom, and I recommend doing the 3x3, and then I recommend setting a countdown of 2 seconds. So what this is going to do when you do that, I'll show you in a moment, but we're gonna swipe in from the right, and for this, I recommend keeping the exposure to auto. The white balance, keep it at auto white balance. For the photo format, you can do RAW or JPEG. I like to do RAW because even though the goal here is minimal editing, it's pretty easy to edit RAW photo, even in the DJI Mimo app. So I recommend that because it's going to give you the most flexibility if you really want to customize it. But if you don't at all, with the Panorama, just keep it at JPEG. And then focus mode, I like to keep that at continuous. So once you've done that, you can press this right here, and it's going to do 9 different photos. So you can see it going through the photos right there. Got my camera bag in it. And then it's going to process it up there. So if we swipe over, that's our photo right there. Now, obviously not the most scenic place to take a photo, but that's what it's going to look like. This is great for any type of landscape or any vista at the top of a mountain, anything like that. It's gonna be pretty cool for that. Next, we're gonna go to the standard photo mode. And for this one, I'm gonna swipe up. I prefer Super Photo. Super Photo is 37 megapixels. If you do the standard, that is only 8 megapixels. So I like to go with the Super Photo, and I personally prefer the 1:1 square. If you do the 16:9, it's gonna be this rectangle, but 1:1 is that nice big square, and then you can crop it slightly later on. But if you don't want to crop it at all, just do 16:9. And then for these settings over here, I do auto. For the format, again, you can do RAW or JPEG. And then focus mode, I keep it continuous. We've already done video mode, so we're gonna skip ahead. We're gonna talk about low light mode. So the Pocket 4 has a dedicated low light mode, and it actually does low light really well. If anything, this is even better than the Pocket 3. This is an improvement over the Pocket 3. The noise reduction algorithm and making the footage look as natural as possible, DJI has definitely come a long way with that. So for the low light mode, I recommend 4K 24 or 4K 30. The reason for that is it's gonna allow the camera to use as slow of a shutter speed as possible. And when you get a slower shutter speed, the camera doesn't have to boost the ISO as much. So you're gonna have less noise reduction that has to be applied. And then when you swipe from the right here, I keep the exposure set to auto because that is the point of this mode. You're depending on this camera to properly expose it and to find the best match to make the best looking footage. It's worth noting the ISO goes from 50 all the way up to 25,600 in this mode. I believe on the Pocket 3 it only went to 12,800. So there is double the ISO now on the upper end. But for the white balance in low light, I do like to keep it at 3800K. So I'm going to have that set to that manual value. And then of course for the tint, I keep that at 0. But if you want to let the camera do that, just click auto white balance and it's going to adjust accordingly. And then for the rest of these settings, I pretty much keep these to their defaults. I keep glamour effects off, focus mode continuous, and focus compensation on. Slow motion mode, let's talk about this because there are some nice improvements on this camera. If I'm gonna use slow motion mode, I'm gonna go all out. So I'm gonna do the 8x slow motion, which is a frames per second of 240. So what that means is on a 30 frames per second timeline, it's going to be slowed down by 8 times. But on a 24 frames per second timeline, it's going to be slowed down by 10 times. And of course, if you're on a 60 frames per second timeline, it's going to be slowed down 4 times. But a couple important things to note is in the slow motion mode, you're not going to have the audio, which kind of makes sense because if you did have the audio and you slowed it down, it's going to be that very deep, low sounding voice like Kevin McAllister's recorder on Home Alone 2, and it's probably not audio you want in your video. And then for the parameters here from the right, I like to keep this set to auto for the exposure. For the white balance, I'm gonna put in my same settings that I would use for the daytime, but do change these accordingly like I mentioned in the normal video mode. And then for the film tone, you can adjust that as you desire. Focus mode, I keep that at continuous. And then the image adjustment, I do the -2 and the -2 for this mode as well. Finally, let's get into the hyperlapse and the time-lapse mode. So I will say right away with the time-lapse mode, I am going to release a dedicated video that shows how to get the best time lapses and the best night lapses with this camera, because there's a whole bunch of detail we can go into there that is going to be just beyond the straight out of camera settings. There's some very special advanced things that you'll want to know for that. But first of all, let's talk about the hyperlapse. So the hyperlapse is basically that time lapse when you're in motion with the camera. So for this, the Pocket 4 does a really good job of picking the rate, so I keep it at auto. And then for these settings right here, the exposure, keep that at auto. And then the white balance, I keep those the same as the video mode, focus mode continuous, and image adjustment -2 and -2. Well, let's jump over to the time-lapse mode. So for the time-lapse mode, depending on what you're doing, there are some modes here already with recommended settings. But I like to do custom, and I like to set some parameters. So for the video duration, I like to do infinity over here to the left. But if you toggle through these right here, if you have a 2-second interval at 20 minutes, it's going to show you what the ending video duration of your actual time lapse is going to be. So 2 seconds at 20 minutes is going to yield 20 seconds. If you film it for an hour at a 2-second interval, it's going to be 1 minute. If you adjust to 5 seconds at an hour, it's going to be 24 seconds. So you can play around with these settings and see what your final time lapse is going to look like. But in general, if you're doing a time lapse, say at sunset, something like that, I like to have a 2-second interval. That's usually a good interval to get enough of that sunset when it peaks that you can have that to use later on. And the reason I do infinity is I like to be able to start and stop this when I want to. I don't like to depend on the timer. Sometimes I've done that and I've missed out on a lot of good stuff because I had it stop too soon. If you are doing some type of all-day time lapse, something like that, you've got a lot of higher interval options, 1 frame every minute, 1 frame every 30 seconds, something like that. So keep that in mind. And then for the parameters here, I recommend auto for the exposure. I do recommend auto for the white balance because you want it to be able to adjust during the time lapse, especially if you have changing conditions like sunrise to sunset, or if it's getting cloudy and then sunny again. And then for the format, you can do video, video plus JPEG, or video plus RAW. So if you want those RAW photos later on to manually edit, you can do that, and you can get the video at the same time. I'm going to show you a lot more about that in the advanced video on this, but in most cases, if you don't want to edit the time lapse later on, you want to select video. For the focus mode, you can do continuous or single. If you do have this camera focused on something specific, then you may want to do single, so the focus doesn't change on you. But you do want to make sure you get that focus right starting off, because if you don't and you have it focusing on something you don't want it to, then you're going to have an entire time lapse with that focus. And then one other thing I want to show you on here, and this is the Motionlapse mode. So you want to make sure that is set to 4K as well. But one thing to know with the Motionlapse is you can do a left to right, and this is going to start over here and move this way. You can do a right to left, it'll start here and move this way. Or you can do a custom motion. So let's say you wanted to do a left to right, we can swipe up and set the parameters. Let's say we wanted the interval to be 2 seconds and we wanted the duration to be 10 minutes. So once I've keyed that in, here's what it's gonna do. You can do a preview of it. So it's gonna start there and it's gonna pan like that. So the preview is really cool that you can see what you're actually going to get. So let's say you wanted it to do wider though. You could do custom motion. And let's say you still wanted to do the 2 seconds, 10 minutes. But when you go back to the screen, what it's gonna tell you is it's gonna tell you exactly what you need to do to set your parameters for this. So let's say we wanted to pan it this way. And when we get our spot, we're gonna hit plus, and we're gonna tap the plus to set our waypoint. And then what we're gonna do next is we're gonna set our stopping point over this way. It's gonna be waypoint number 2. Let's say we wanted it to move up slightly too. You can do that as well, so you can have it at a diagonal. So I'm gonna click plus right there, and then let's preview it. So it's gonna start right there, and it's going to pan up. So this is a really cool feature you can use for a lot of time lapses where you can add motion in the camera. You don't have to do it later on with any cropping, anything like that. You're going to get the full 4K resolution for the entirety of your time lapse. I love using this one in a lot of different settings. It's very cool. And I love it that this functionality is built into this camera. And if you want to dig deeper and get the very best that you possibly can from the Pocket 4, check out this playlist right here. So the tunnel has a spot where water comes out of the wall from the water table underground, spring area. Oh, that water's really cold. And then it pools right down here in the ground. You want to touch it? How cold is it?